After drinking the Kool-Aid of 3 consecutive moral victories, the Carolina Panthers are finally brought back down to earth by the Dallas Cowboys 30-16 in a, quite frankly, embarrassing loss. So in this video, I'm going to do as I do after each and every game and provide you all with a few awards for some performances I saw put forth out there on the field yesterday. And we're going to get into all of that right after this.
I'm from the foe. You dig?
Welcome to The Way I See It with Jamario Rashad. This is a Carolina Panthers fan channel. Please do me a favor by hitting the like button, and please make sure you subscribe as I am on my road to 3K. Trying to make sure my channel continues to grow as we play out this less than optimal season. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the video. So my Carolina Panthers are, or they were, riding their high horse after reading their own press clippings and officially not being the most terrible team in the entire league. Everybody in the media and locally not piling on them as much as they were in the beginning portion of the season. So they went out there with their heads held high and they got smashed right down into that turf by the Dallas Cowboys in embarrassing fashion. And this guy, unfortunately, after I gave him his kudos for coming back and being a baller last week, went out there and put forth an absolute dud. So winning his second "You should have stayed your ass in the locker room" award, Bryce Young. Now, y'all, this pains me to say because I wanted to continue to give Bryce his praises, to sing his praises, to pat him on the back and say good job as he hopefully continue to stack good performance after good performance. But inevitably he was going to have a bad game. Unfortunately, this was one of his worst of his career in terms, or the worst in his career in terms of turnovers. Bryce Young threw for 219 total yards, 100 and over almost 90 of those coming on one particular pass. So if you take away that one explosive play, Bryce Young was absolutely pedestrian. He threw 2 interceptions. One was not his fault. It got bounced in the air. He tried to force a ball in there. One would say it's his fault because he had somebody trailing right behind Adam Thielen in Jatavian Sanders wide open. So I mean, it depends on how you feel. But the second one, he just had no zip on the ball and airmailed it down the field to essentially end the game in the fourth quarter. So Bryce Young was absolutely terrible. The offensive line was absolutely terrible as well. They let him down, and Bryce Young had one of the most clumsy, it's incredible because he makes one of the most impressive jukes you'll ever see an NFL player or anybody on planet Earth make on Micah Parsons, the one of, if not the best edge defender in the league, pass rusher, all of that good stuff. He puts a move on him, makes him look absolutely silly. He stumbles over his own feet and is unable to even just fall to the ground and secure the ball safely. Somebody just just pops the ball out, not even trying to necessarily get force a fumble, just trying to tag him on the way down, and Bryce Young fumbles the ball. Then on the second one, the offensive line completely whiffs. He gets hit in less than 2 seconds, and still he doesn't hold on to the ball. So Bryce Young was responsible for 4 turnovers in this game, which is an absolute turnaround, a complete 180 for the development and the reps that we've been seeing him put forth out on the field over the past 3 weeks since this bye week. Bryce Young did not look as pedestrian as he did in the first 2 quarters, but he did not do anything to help this offense because every time there was momentum that was built up, it was just immediately taken away by a mistake that was primarily made by Bryce Young, man. So if Bryce was able to just be competent in this game, we stood a lot better of a chance of actually winning. This was the first game that the Carolina Panthers were favored in I believe over 2 years. That just shows how ass we've been since the departure of Cam Newton almost 6 years ago now. So Bryce Young, man, if you were just able to just 2 turnovers and 1 touchdown, we could have possibly been in this game. But you weren't the only person that was ass, so I'm going to stop piling on my quarterback, man. But I do believe that he still is the franchise quarterback of the future. Do not be one of those idiotic fans that go week by week and changing your opinion of the state of the entire franchise because of one bad game. We've saw that there is potential in this team, but let's not forget that we only have 3 wins on the season. So you can't just have astronomical expectations of a team that's going to have a top 5 pick. But for all of those reasons, I'm not going to forget, Bryce Young, you should have stayed your ass in the locker room, sir. Congratulations. The young buck was absolutely putrid. That boy was some ass today. But Bryce Young was not the only person that was ass. This next group of people I'm going to talk about is actually a collective, because I do not believe there was one singular person responsible for their assness. So I believe they have to take this as a whole. So winning their very first "you should have stayed your ass in the locker room" award, the entire offensive line. Now, this unit has been lauded as being the most consistent and the most improved unit that we have of both sides of the ball, whether it be offense, defense, or special teams. The offensive line is where we spent the money in this offseason, and that is where it looks like we are having the most success with that money being allocated. With the addition of Robert Hunt, with the addition of Damian Lewis, we've been able to see Bryce Young go out there and have clean pockets, and Andy Dalton have clean pockets. We've seen Chuba Hubbard have 1,000 yards rushing for the first time in his career. But in this game, like I mentioned in the intro, these guys have been smelling their own you know what, and just knew that people were lauding them for being much improved, for being an upper tier unit, not only on the team but in the league. And they went out there and they put forth an absolute stinker. Damian Lewis was already showing signs of leakage last week in the first half before he cleaned it up in the second half. This week he went out there and he showed some similar whiffs. You had Micah Parsons just absolutely destroying Ike Ekwonu on several occasions. You had the stunts just coming in there. You had I think it's Odigizua. I think that's his name. He was absolutely dominant. He forced an entire 3 and out by himself because nobody on this offensive line, neither of the 5 of these guys, could do anything to block these guys. So after the first 2 or 3 drives, once the Cowboys defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer realized that Dave Canales had no answers for his adjustments, he sicked his dogs out there, and this offensive line could do absolutely nothing about it. Us not running the ball did not help in that regard, but these guys being a unit that has been able to pass protect relatively well compared to these recent seasons. I'm absolutely disappointed with just how ass they were. 6 sacks allowed. There had only been 4 sacks allowed over the past 4 games, and in this game you allowed more than you've allowed in the last quarter of the season, and that is absolutely unacceptable. So for that reason, the entire offensive line, y'all should have stayed y'all asses in the locker room. Congratulations. Big Rob, man, I'm disappointed in y'all boys. I'm disappointed. But now that we've talked about the quarterback, we've talked about the offensive line. If this unit was ass and this player was ass, and one would have to assume that the guy that was actually on the headset relaying all of the calls to these gentlemen was also ass as well. So winning his 3rd "you should have stayed your ass in the locker room" award, Pretty Ricky head coach Dave Canales. Now, I've been on the record last week saying I am on Dave Canales' side. You will not hear me jumping off the ship at all for the remainder of the season. I respect what he's been able to draw out of this absolutely terrible team. But in this particular game, Mike Zimmer put Dave Canales' ass in an absolute blender, and he could not do anything about it. One of the biggest critiques that we've had of Dave Canales over this not even over the past couple of weeks, but throughout the entire season, is we've seen just how effective of a rusher and a runner that Chuba Hubbard has been able to be, putting up over 1,000 yards with at least 4 or 5 games left in this season, knowing that he might get up to about 1,300 yards. We still do not give him consistent carries to be able to be the best offensive player that we have on this team, the guy that we've paid most recently on this team. We do not treat him as that player. Do not get it twisted. Chuba Hubbard is the best offensive player on this Carolina Panthers team. He is the most valuable offensive weapon, bar none. Quarterback, wide receiver, it doesn't matter. Chuba Hubbard is the best player we have. But in the first half, I believe Chuba Hubbard had about 5 carries through the first 2 quarters of the game. As you're seeing the Dallas Cowboys not necessarily pile up points on you, as it was 0-0 at the end of the first quarter, but you're seeing that they're not able to put up points. Why are you so gung-ho on throwing the ball and making sure that everything's in Bryce Young's hands when you know that Chuba Hubbard is going to be able to run the ball, and they have one of the worst run defenses in the entire league? That does not make any sense whatsoever. One has to surmise, with the way that Dave Canales is playing, is calling these plays, now that Bryce Young has shown improvement, yes, it's like, okay, we see that Bryce has the ability. Of course, we want Bryce to progress, but if we are playing to win these games, the answer is Chuba Hubbard. So if we are tanking, I do not respect that whatsoever. I'm not going to accuse these guys of doing that, because players do not tank. The organization and coaches tank. So the way that Dave Canales has been calling these plays is starting to look a little bit fishy to me, man. So that's all I'm going to say. Chuba Hubbard not being able to tote the rock against one of the worst run defenses in the entire league is just malpractice on the head coach, who is the offensive coordinator. So for that reason, Dave Canales, you should have stayed your ass in the locker room, sir. Congratulations. Pretty Ricky was bad, man. Mike Zimmer put this man in a blender, and he did not know how to stay away from the blades, and he got his ass cut up. You hear me? But Dave was bad. And he's had his ups, he's had his downs, but Dave Canales has been the reason for those 3 victories. It's been his play calling that has been the reason why we won those games. So although he should have stayed his ass in the locker room this game, I still got Dave's back. This other person I'm about to talk about, I am completely done with, and I cannot wait until he is fired at the end of the season and we can get this trash ass 3-4 defense out of Carolina. So winning his God knows how manyth you should have stayed your ass in the locker room award, defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero. Now, I am so sick of this guy thinking that he can just outmaneuver and out scheme and out X and O whomever these other offensive coordinators are with our subpar bodies on defense, thinking that he can just be some mad scientist whipping up some just defensive masterpiece, and it goes out there and it looks like absolute shit week after week. We could not put up any pressure in this game whatsoever. We made Cooper Rush look like prime Joe Montana doing whatever the fuck he wanted to in this game, and that is because the Ejiro Evero's defense sucks. It absolutely sucks. The only person that had a sack in this game was J.C. Horn. Our number 1 cornerback was continuously, just like last week, being sent on blitzes. We had nickel blitzes all game, leaving our ass DBs, not JC, not Mike Jackson, goddamn Xavier Woods and Jordan Fuller, leaving these guys one-on-one with CeeDee Lamb, a top 5 receiver in the NFL, continuously, and I mean fucking continuously, calling up plays where a safety is on a number 1 receiver and he is chopping our asses up, and you made no adjustments whatsoever. There were several drives in this game that nobody did anything except for CeeDee Lamb. He drove these guys all the way down the field, whether it resulted in a touchdown or whether it resulted in a field goal. It was CeeDee Lamb that did the heavy lifting of getting that Dallas Cowboys offense down in position to score however many points they scored. And defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero did abso-fucking-lutely nothing to be able to counteract what they were doing. Mike McCarthy made him look like a goddamn PAL middle school junior pee-wee mighty might ass coach out there. And this is somebody that our owner, not my goddamn owner, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, and an ambassador, or as the NBA call him, because that feels wow, icky saying that shit, but he refuses to let this man go for 2 consecutive seasons. He's blocked him from making moves to other teams because because the league allows you to block lateral moves, because nobody is hiring him as an official head coach. If somebody wants to hire him as a DC, Tepper has said no for 2 consecutive seasons, and our defense has been asked for 2 consecutive seasons. So this guy needs to pack his damn bags and leave the locker room immediately. But in terms of this game, Ejiro Evero, what you should have done was stay your ass in the locker room, sir. Congratulations. Terrible, man. Just absolutely terrible. Ejiro Evero should be fired immediately. There's no point in firing him mid-season because he is responsible for all of the defensive hires. So if you elevate anybody that he hired, one can only surmise that they would have the same defensive philosophy that he did, and you cannot implement an entire defensive overhaul in terms of scheme in the middle of the season. That 3-4 is here until 17 games are played, whether we like it or not, so there's no point in firing him right now. But I can't wait for his ass to be out the door at the end of the season, man. So that concludes our guys that were asked this week. They should have stayed their asses in the locker room. They should have prepared a different way. They should have just not shown up for the game. They should have overslept because they did nothing to help this game and everything to hurt it. So now we have to move over to the positive side, because although this was a rough watch because the Carolina Panthers were pretty much terrible all around, there was somebody that popped in this game that has become a fan favorite and is going to be a very, very divisive player in the near future when it comes to draft talk. But yesterday, this guy was an absolute baller. So coming back off of missing 2 or 3 consecutive games with a hamstring injury and putting up 110 yards, winning his very first baller award, Jalen Coker. Now, man, Coke boys unite, man. Huh? If you get that reference, I rock with you. But you know what I'm saying? Coker has been an absolute baller, man. He has only played, this was his 8th game, 7th or 8th game he's played this season, and every one that he has got a significant amount of snaps, he has popped in all of those games. Something that I have said as of late that I would say is going to be divisive, because I believe there's going to be a narrative that more people on Panthers Twitter start to discuss, is the fact that we got Jalen Coker as an absolute undrafted free agent. Every team in the league passed up on this guy, and we were the ones that signed him. But also, we traded into the first round to make sure we can ensure the option of a 5th round on a wide receiver in Xavier Legette, who is simply, no matter the metric, no matter how you want to slice it, Xavier Legette is not as good as Jalen Coker. Jalen Coker has had, what Jalen Coker did in this game with that 80-something yard catch and run was the biggest play that the Carolina Panthers have had in nearly 2 seasons since DJ Moore caught that pass against the Atlanta Falcons. This guy has been an absolute beast, and after this week, with this 110 yards put up in this game, he has played in half as many games than Xavier Legette and is only about 50 yards behind him. He has been an absolute monster. He has scored on several occasions. This guy is an absolute beast. I cannot say enough enough about my guy Jalen Coker. He was the only shining light in this game, and I hope he continues to be an absolute beast, because he is going to be an integral part of this team, allowing us to focus solely on defense, finding gems, focus solely on defense in the draft, which finding gems like Jalen Coker allows us to do, man. Hopefully he will be around for a long time, as we see a 34-year-old Adam Thielen in his 11th year, an undrafted guy making multiple Pro Bowls, being an All-Pro in other years, having that guy still be around to be a mentor to our guy that hopefully will join those ranks of those all-time great undrafted wide receivers in the future gives me great hope for what we're going to get out of this guy in the future. But today, winning his very first Baller Award, Jalen Coker. Oh, what my sound? There it is. Turn up, Coke, man. Turn up. He was the only baller in this game, unfortunately. Everybody else, except for the guy I'm about to mention, was relatively just pedestrian to ass. Whichever side of the pendulum or spectrum you choose to assign to those guys, it's fine with me. Just know that they were bad. But I do believe that there was an unsung hero in this game, and the reason he's unsung is because the things that he didn't necessarily impact winning at all, because we were not able to put up points. But his individual effort does need to be highlighted, because it is a lot better and in stark contrast to what we were getting at the beginning of the season. So winning the very first honorable mention of the season, we have kick returner Devin Tompkins. Now, Devin Tompkins returned 3 kicks for almost 100 yards. 88 yards on 3 returns is absolute madness. That's almost 30 yards per return, depending on where you catch that at, depending on where he actually catches the ball at. That puts you 20 to 25 yards away from field goal range, just because of what this man is able to do with a kick return. Now, as we've had Raheem Blackshear in that spot at the beginning of the season, he has not been able to show near as much pop as Devin Tompkins has been able to do in the return game. Although he hasn't took one back for a touchdown, to me, in my eyes, it looks inevitable that one day it's going to happen. As we had a special kick returner in Amir Smith-Marset last year, I look at Devin Tompkins as being somebody that is just as, if not even more capable than ISM, and I assume that he is going to be somebody that has a big impact in a game, whether it be this year or next, in the special teams game, that may potentially flip it in our favor. So for that reason, man, winning an honorable mention. Shout out to Devin Tompkins. All right, man. So that wraps it up for this week. Those are my awards. I gave it a day. I didn't make these awards immediately after I decided I'm going to try to process my feelings instead of yelling them into the microphone immediately after the game, no matter how entertaining that may be. And it allows me a little bit more time, to prepare and try to get my thoughts together. But what do you all think about this week's awards? All of the You Should Have Stayed Your Ass in the Locker Room awards. Did I miss anybody? Was there any particular player on the defense that was more ass than usual? Should any of them got a specific shout out? I know I picked on the entire offensive line. Should I've talked about the entire defense? Was there another baller that I just failed to mention? Whatever you all think, leave your comments down in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get back to you. But until next time, I am Jamario Rashad. This is the way I see it, and I'm out. Peace.